Hello F11 members and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 73, February 2018. 6 years ago we started publishing the Chasing the Light online magazine, which became the F11 Photography magazine, and here we are, still at it. Right then, let's plug on, and what I'd like to do is talk you through the processing of this picture here on the screen from my shoot at Sherborne Rugby Club last weekend. Now you can read all about that shoot, the triumphs, the tribulations, the pitfalls in my behind the lens feature in this very issue. I had great fun, was really quite into it, and I'm quite pleased with some of the pictures. So what I'd like to do is just talk you through now the processing. Okay, so I'm in the develop module here, and actually if I show you where we started with this image, you'll get an idea of what has been done to the image. Now you can see on the left of the image there in color, and I chose to shoot the whole session in black and white because I really wanted to concentrate on the action, the shapes, the expressions, and I felt that the colours, particularly of the opposition, that's Trowbridge there in the background, in their sort of lurid yellow colours, was really quite distracting. I think it's a far stronger image in black and white. So if I come back to the whole shoot now and show you what I did. So basically I imported the images, I captioned them, and then I actually shot with monochrome picture style set in camera so that I was able to view the images in black and white on the back of my camera. And then when I imported them into Lightroom, I went to selected them all, went to develop module, and then went through these presets here, Lightroom black and white filter presets, and basically just chose the filter preset that I preferred. And green seemed to be the one to go for, because basically what it did was lighten the green of the grass in the background, making the players stand out against that neutral green color quite well. And that, of course, is my starting point for working on this picture. The green preset is just a starting point. So let's now reset the image to how I originally shot it, the raw image straight out of the camera, and go through the processing of it. So I'll select that green black and white preset there, and that's done a black and white conversion. Now what I want to do is work through and optimize this image, selectively darkening and adjusting tone and contrast in different parts of the image. But before we do that, the first thing to address really is the cropping of the image. Now, I worked hard to try and shoot images so that I was composing in frame, but by the very nature of action photography, a bit of cropping is usually beneficial. Now, in this particular case here, I'm going to select the crop tool. I made the decision as well that I wanted to keep the 2:3 aspect ratio in all the images. So my options for cropping are a little bit restrained by that. I make sure here that this lock here, if I click on and off, that's locking the aspect ratio now. So if I now crop the image, it will make sure that I keep that 2:3 aspect ratio. And I'll just drag in a corner here. What do I want to do? Well, clearly I want to exclude this player creeping in on the edge of the frame there. And if I take it into about there, that's getting a lot better. I want to keep those heads in the background. So if I now just move the crop down a touch, just so that those heads are there, I can come in a little bit that way, crop a touch more. But I really want to be careful here that I don't crop too much, because what I like actually are these legs in the bottom of the frame, the kind of repetition of pattern that we have with those backs of the legs there. Sorry, with the legs. And this player here just coming in on the left as well. I think he adds a dynamism to the composition as well. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that crop. And now I click on done. And now what do I want to do? Well, let's work through the image as we would do any image really. And as usual, the starting point is my black and my white points. By the way, you can see the white balance has changed because I applied that green filter, as has the tint. But I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to come straight through to my white points. And if I hold down my Alt slider here and move my whites to the right, I can go a fair way before I start clipping my whites. And the first thing to start clipping is the bright white of that player, that somewhat oblivious Trowbridge player in the background. He's a bit of a distraction, so I'm going to need to deal with him in a minute. But I'm just looking at the overall image here and my black and my white points. Again, hold down my Alt key, move the black point key slider to the left. Now normally what I would do with a color image is generally I would only go so far as I start to the point where I clip shadows. So I'm just going to look at my black points again, hold down the Alt key, move the black slider, and in this case I'm willing to sacrifice just a few blacks, just a few shadows, because I think in black and white there's real beauty in a pure, rich black. And so in this particular case, just losing a few tones in the blacks is not going to cause me to lose sleep. In fact, I think it enhances the image there. Okay, so now what's interesting as well is that the Lightroom preset has actually added some clarity to the image. And I, generally speaking, don't use clarity. It's not a look I like in my color work, but for black and white, I think it's actually can be quite beneficial. It just adds a little bit of local contrast. And in fact, if I bring the slider out, you'll see the effect it has. Now it's easy to go too far, but I think a touch in this particular case does help. And so to fine-tune that adjustment, if I just select the number on the right here, and then I can use my up or down key on the keyboard to just fine-tune that clarity adjustment. It's often a lot easier doing it this way than it is trying to use that slider, which is not that accurate. So I'm going to put in about 40 of clarity in there. Okay, that's worked well. Now let's come down and look at my tone curve, and I've got, I just want to brighten the whole image actually. And so what I'm going to do is just brighten the image here, pull the top of the curve up, pull the bottom of the curve down just a touch to make sure that, you know, I've got a nice contrasty image here. I hate muddy black and white images, so we really want some contrast, some grit to this image here. Okay, and that's already, we've got an image which I think has been improved quite significantly. But now what I'm concerned with is that the image, the periphery of the image is too bright. So what I'm going to do here is use the Radial Filter. Click on that, select the center of the area that I want to apply this to. In fact, what I'm going to do, what I'm using this to do, is darken down the edges of the image whilst keeping the center, the bit on the player, untouched. And the essence of this picture is the guy with the ball, the Sherborne player with the ball. He's what this is all about. I want to maximize the attention on his face, showing all that grit and determination. So I come down here, I'll make sure my feather slider is up to maximum, 100 pixels now, and I'm going to basically just darken down the edges of the image there a touch. It has the effect of focusing attention on the on where we want it to be, which is the player with the ball. So I'll come down to about -34 there. Don't want to go so much so that it's obvious here, but click on Done. Now there's one thing that's really bothering me is this bright white in the background of that player there. So I'm going to use that Trowbridge player there. I'm going to use my adjustment brush here. I can adjust the size of that brush and bring it down a bit here now, okay, to an applicable kind of size. Click on Show Selected Mask Overlay now, and then I'm going to paint in the area that I want to select, which is pretty much his really bright shirt there in the background. So paint in that area there. What I'm doing now is just, I'm taking this guy's shirt as well because that's a little bit distracting. I'm just selecting the area really, and now I come down here and unclick Show Selected Mask, pull back the highlights, which does what it says on the tin. And I'm actually just going to pull down the exposure a touch as well, just to darken that down. That has the effect of really making that less distracting. But I mistakenly chose this guy's head as well, and now that's making him look unnaturally darkened there. So what I can do easily now is just come down to Erase, click on that, Erase, show my mask overlay again, and take that out. This adjustment brush is a really useful tool, actually, I have to say. Very neat. Click on that, and that's better. And that's really made that less distracting in the background. Okay, so click on Done. Not done, I'm not finished yet though, because I still think I want to see the player, because he's sort of hunched over, is still a bit dark. So I'm going to use the adjustment brush again and click on Show Selected Mask Overlay again. Paint the area I want to select, which is him, essentially. I'll go with all of him. Not that forearm, but pretty much all the rest of him. Certainly the dark bits here. All around here. Maybe not the ball. Okay, that's good. So I've made my selection. Unclick Show Selected Mask Overlay here. Now, what I'm going to do is boost the whites in this area. If I go too far, it'll tell me when I start to clip. And I can go quite a long way. And that's had the effect of really making the tones in his face look much better contrast there, brighter as well. I'm just going to boost shadows a little bit as well. And I'm quite pleased with that. I'd say that's done a touch. I could, if I wanted, just boost exposure a bit as well. Got to be careful I don't go too far with this. But I think that's worked a treat, quite frankly. Click on Done, and I think that's it. I think I am finished with this picture. Sharpening has been done on import, as I always do these days. You'll notice I chose not to apply profile corrections here. I wanted the darkening of the edges, and that's it. So, I hope that's of interest, and we'll carry on in part 2 with the post-production video tutorials for this month, and we're going to look at Photoshop actions. Okay, see you there, and thank you.